So just a quick introduction. I'm Janice Lee, and I am standing in proxy for Angela. I'm going to go through a few slides to tell you a bit about who we are. So this is Seasons Conversations. This is a discussion once a month to help people make informed decisions, right? How awesome is it when we deal with our clients or we're able to help families and they can be proactive and not reactive? And so these education sessions are really about helping families to be informed, to make the best decisions to fit their scenarios, and then to provide them with information so that they can make decisions, not last minute, but based on what's best for them and their loved ones. So I'd like to just acknowledge our sponsors: David Perry Miller Real Estate, Harvest Estate and Appraisal Services, Luxury Portfolio International, CSA, which is Certified Senior Advisor, and then Consider It Done, our virtual concierge. And if we have, I believe one of our sponsors is in the room. You want to take a quick stand up? And we just thank you for supporting what we're doing. Can you give us your name and tell us your company?
Yeah, so my name is Shannon, and my company is Quote Savant, and we do, I'm a client advisor. So I help you find insurance benefits, dental, vision, Medicare, home, auto, and we have many options, so I help you shop your insurance.
Okay, thank you. There's Angela, who's not able to be here with us in person, but trust you me, we talked a whole lot to make sure that you all get the top of the line presentation today. So that's Angela. And then I will be your moderator. I'm Janice Lee. I'm the owner of Harvest Estate and Appraisal Services, where I work with my clients. A lot of times at the point where they're working with a lot of you, they're downsizing. They want to understand the value of the things in their home, the memories they've collected over the years. I help them to understand the values on those objects so that they can, in good conscience, downsize and sell them or make sure that they're passed on to loved ones, so they can do that with some conciseness and, understand what they have. I'm going to ask our panelists to please come up to the front and take your seats. And we are missing one of our panelists who unfortunately is unable to join us because she's had a travel snafu. So unfortunately, we still have that going on. Now that we're a little bit out of COVID, we still get those flight issues. So thank you, Tim and Loretta, for joining me at the front. Okay, so we're here to talk about the truth about assisted living. All right, y'all ready? Is the audience ready? Okay, so y'all got paper in front of you. Please write down your questions. We are a friendly bunch. We don't bite. I say that except on occasion when children are naughty. I tell them I might bite you, so be good. All right. So thank you guys so much for being here to share with us your expertise. As you know, this is an issue. I think it was the last time we met, someone said that we're on the edge of a silver wave, and we're just at the beginning. And so as people are aging, we're about to see a lot more people having to be informed and try to make these decisions. So if you all would please share with me your name and your role, where you're at, and your experience with senior living. So we'll let ladies go first.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Janice, for letting me participate in this panel. It's my first opportunity, so to represent the tradition, senior living. My name is Loretta Ressler. I've been in the industry for over 20 years, so and currently with the tradition over 10 years. So, and I am a marketing and leasing director for the tradition. I work at the Lovers Lane location.
And Tim.
My name is Tim Powell. I have worked specifically in the senior health and lifestyle industry for the past 12 years. I've worked in the hospice industry. I also worked in home care. For the last 7 years, I have been a family liaison for senior living specialists. and we are a local company here in DFW. We try to be a resource for families however we can. Primarily what we do is try to help families come up with the right senior living option.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's jump into this. Let's talk a little bit about some of the reasons why people might move to an assisted living community. So think about the people who you all have worked with, and can you give me the top 3 reasons? And there may be some overlap, so if one person gives something, maybe one of you can expound on other reasons that people are moving to assisted living.
Okay.
Good question. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say, from my experience working with families and relatives of loved ones, obviously assisted living is need-based. If somebody doesn't want to move in, they don't volunteer to move to assisted living. So it is need-based. And it is precipitated by a concern. You know, a loved one is concerned. And I think the top 3 reasons would be, that I'm hearing anyway, is that my loved one is isolated. My loved one, you know, and a lot has resulted because of COVID. So isolation, they're not eating well. A lot of it is medication administration. They are not administering their medication safely any longer. A loved one, adult child will come in and notice that those med minders that they put in, the medications they put in the med minders are still filled. So they're concerned about medication administration, as well as their general decline. And that general decline can result in falls, urinary tract infections, and reasons for someone to go to the hospital. And so, and that typically then precipitates a need for change from their home environment.
And I would agree with Rhoda. I think that health and safety concerns are typically what I see more than anything else. You know, I talk to adult children, and mom has fallen 3 times in the last couple of months, or maybe she's fallen and she's actually in rehab now, and the family is concerned about her being able to go back home and live on her own. So that could certainly bring up a discussion about assisted living, because it becomes a safety concern, you know, to have the parent living on their own when you know they're not, you know, really taking care of themselves. And of course, the health needs, you know, they're not managing their medications very well. Maybe they're actually starting to have some hands-on care needs, where they're not able to get up and down from the bed or get up and down from a chair, and they need somebody to help them, or maybe need some assistance, you know, taking a shower or something like that. Then also, I would agree with Loretta about the social aspect of things, because I think that seniors, especially those living on their own, can tend to start isolating.
Yes.
Maybe they don't drive anymore. Maybe they used to be a really social person, and they're just not participating in, you know, things with friends or the kind of activities that they used to be involved with. Maybe they used to like to paint or quilt, you know, or play cards, or, you know, anything like that, and they're simply not doing it anymore. Being in assisted living affords them the opportunity to hopefully come out of their shell. And I'm sure you've seen that a lot. And they start participating in things again and doing things that they used to enjoy. And then the food and the dining. You know, a lot of seniors just don't like cooking for themselves anymore, or they're not eating healthy, you know. And so being in assisted living, having that 3 meals a day, restaurant-style dining, that can meet dietary needs, that can actually, you know, help them improve their health.
Absolutely.
By being able to eat better.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what these communities look like. So can you tell me a little bit about apartment options in assisted living, and tell me a little bit about what the units look like and the amenities that come with those options?
I would be delighted. And remember, I'm speaking of the tradition, because that's the company that I work with and work for. So, but I can definitely share with you. Apartments range in size. There's studio apartments, 450 square feet. We've got one-bedroom apartments that range in size from 600 square feet all the way up to 830 square feet. And then we have two-bedroom, two-bath apartments. And of course, those pricing is going to be determined by the apartment itself, the size of the apartment, and then we have a base level of services that would be included at that price point. And some of the amenities, Janice, would be all the residents will receive medication administration, and reminders for meals and activities, safety assistance in the shower. Of course, their meals, all 3 meals are provided, housekeeping weekly. We can do their laundry for them. We do, Care Partners do laundry as well. Utilities are included, transportation, active calendar, nursing around the clock. Those are some of the things that are provided for each and every one of our residents. But understand that before they move in, they're all evaluated to determine how we can best meet that individual need. So pricing will vary depending upon the need of the resident. The apartment pricing obviously would be one price point, and then we would evaluate for levels of care, and then those would be individualized.
Okay, are you seeing similar things, or
Yeah,
can you add to
absolutely.
that?
I think the amenities, for the most part, are pretty standard at most assisted living properties. You know, we provide information on like the floor plans and square footage and things like that at different places. And I always tell families that, you know, you really have to go and look in person, you know, because a studio at the Tradition is not going to look the same as a studio at, you know, Edgemere or Belmont or whatever. And you also need to realize that for the most part, apartments in assisted living are going to be smaller than they are in independent living, which can sometimes be a bit of a jolt for people. They also come with a kitchenette rather than a kitchen. So in assisted living, you don't have a stove. There's no cooking stove. It's typically just some cabinets and a sink and
Definitely a
microwave.
refrigerator, ice maker,
Yeah.
then they can bring those appliances that they can use safely, because it is all about safety.
Yeah, and then certainly the, you know, the budget, which I know we'll be talking about, but that has a lot to do with it as well, just because there's such a wide range of pricing. But most places do offer, like Loretta said, and like the Tradition has, studio apartments, one-bedroom apartments, and not all have two-bedroom apartments, but a lot of the assisted living communities do.
It can be a hot commodity a lot of times.
Yeah, it's hard to find a two-bedroom. I mean, if that's available, it usually is snatched up.
And I totally agree with Tim. You know, I think one of the biggest barriers is the size of the apartments, because they do come from these very spacious homes here in Dallas, or spacious independent living communities. And so they feel like they're giving up so much. But yeah, sizes vary and by pricing, and so a lot of that is determined by budget, right? And so it's just, you know, we just work individually with the families and try to find that best fit.
And we try to tell families too, you know, when you think about it, the apartment is really where you sleep.
Right,
But
absolutely.
the community itself is where you live. You know, that's really what your hope is.
And it's true. It's like I always say, you got the biggest home in Dallas, right? It's because your apartment is your sacred sanctuary. Is how I kind of interpret it. And it's the community that's their home. And so we want to draw them out of those apartments. So the size is really not a bearing. Once they really, it's that myth, right? One of those myths that, you know, I'm losing, I'm in a smaller apartment. No, your home is beautiful. We're on several acres. We have garden space and beautiful,
It's
you know,
like being on a
parlors and
cruise
all
ship.
kinds of lovely. Okay, it is like a cruise ship, yes, on land. It really is. And so, yes, it is breaking. It is getting past that fear of change and giving them opportunity to really visualize what their life could be.
I like how you all mentioned myths.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna kind of just throw this at them and ask if you all could give 2 myths that you are aware of, and what your knowledge about assisted living dispels those myths that people typically have about assisted living.
Well, I get to go first, yay. When I meet with our new hires, I ask them, I said, what do you think of when you hear the word assisted living? And, you know, sometimes they'll raise their hand and say, well, you know, it's a nursing home, right? I mean, that's kind of what that term kind of brings, that feeling of a nursing home. So what I like to refer to the tradition as we are catered living. So if you really take that, if you take that term assisted living and just use it to cater, we all want to be catered to. We all want to be pampered. And so one of the myths is that I'm going to move to this dark, dingy place and I'm going to not have any choices anymore. I'm going to can't make my decisions. Somebody else is making my decisions. So that's one of the myths is that, and that's why I want to draw that family member and that loved one to the community. So I want to dispel that myth. And the way to do that is to invite them to come for a visit. And so once they see the beauty, our tagline at the tradition, senior living, is beauty is just the beginning. Because beauty draws us in. Beauty is what entices us for more, right? So if I come in and I see something beautiful, then automatically my defenses are down, I feel okay because, you know, it's beautiful. And so what's not to like about beauty, right? And then then they experience it. And once I always invite them to come for lunch. And it's like, you need to experience the tradition before you know if it's a good feel or fit. And so by the time they end the visit, I'll ask them if it's the relative and the resident prospect, and I'll ask them after the visit, I said, could you see yourself living here? And once they say yes, and I've only heard yeses, I mean, there's budgetary concerns and considerations, but because we are top tier, but, and, you know, once they experience it, then that myth is, they don't have to, it's busted, it's, you know, it's gone, because they see themselves in a situation where they can thrive, and so that's a huge myth. What would you say? I don't want to speak.
I agree with that. The whole nursing home connotation is the biggest myth because they just automatically picture it as this dark place with everybody is in a wheelchair, you know, or using a walker, and it's just simply not true. You know, it really depends on the property. A lot of assisted living communities tend to have higher functioning residents than others. You know, that's kind of part of the search process of one of the criteria that might be used. And then there may be assisted living communities that tend to have, you know, people who are further along as far as their health needs. And maybe you do see more of the walkers and wheelchairs, but I think that if you can just get them in the door, like Loretta said, and giving them an opportunity to see what it's all about and see if they could envision themselves living there. And I know Loretta does a good job, you know, when she tours people, of trying to sort of match up that person maybe with a few of their residents. You know, maybe some residents that they can connect with, that they might have some things in common with, just to show them that, yes, you actually can make friends here. You know, you're not going to just move in and,
very good point.
you know, stay in your apartment and, you know.
We all want to live in a nice neighborhood. And many times when I'm with these families, they'll say, they'll ask about that, you know, I mean, what will my mother be able to make friends, you know, and we all want to live in a nice neighborhood, but all neighborhoods have diversity. So as long as we can connect them with a couple of people, I said, you know, in my day, and I'll give an example, I'll say in my neighborhood, not all my neighbors are my friends, but we all get along, right? We all cohabitate. And all I need is one or two people to feel welcome in my neighborhood. So as they visit, when they tour, that's really what I want. I want that prospective resident to be able to say, you know, could you see yourself, you know, having conversations with these ladies? Would you be comfortable? And you put up, you know, the good point is that there's various functions of resident. Why does somebody move to assisted living? Because they've got a need. Either the need is because for cognitive reasons, there's mild to moderate kind of dementia going on, or you've got some physical limitation where there's some care needs, that somebody needs some physical hands-on care day to day. And so, so there's going to be a diverse group of residents. But the reality is that what our job at the Tradition, we have a director of community relations, her name is Catherine Kurtz. Her role is to make sure that that resident integrates into the community. So, and she does that by making sure that she knows their profile, that she knows a little bit about their background. She connects them with some of the residents that are very similar in interests. And once somebody feels comfortable and if they have a friend, then they will automatically feel welcome. But I think another myth that is that's really concerning for that potential resident is that they think they're going to give up all of their decision-making abilities and their choices. So what's important for them to note is that when you live in an assisted living setting, you actually have more choices because you are insulated with care and love and attention. And the choices then, you'll have choices to be able to choose what you want to do in the course of a day. Choose what you want to have for a meal. Choose whether to go out to play bridge or to play bridge inside the community. So it's all about the fear. There's fear of leaving, fear of change, and part of that fear, part of those myths are, I'm not going to be able to make my own decisions for myself anymore. So that's another myth.
And that is why we're here, right? So you all can be armed and dangerous with information to help make those decisions. So we've kind of skirted around this topic of pricing. So we're going to jump right to pricing. And Tim, I'm actually going to start with you first because you are working with multiple communities. Can you tell us a little bit about what someone can expect in terms of pricing for assisted living? How is the pricing determined? Is it a lease situation? Is it month to month? Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then Loretta, could you jump in?
I think in my experience, and a lot depends on location. I mean, let's face it, some of the most expensive senior living communities in all of DFW are right here in Dallas, and so if families are kind of willing to expand their geography a little bit into nearby areas, you can expect, senior living to probably start on the low end at around $3,000 a month is what I tell families. And then it can just go up to, you can pay $7,000, $8,000 a month, or more, at a property like the Tradition or Belmont Village or one of those. Pricing is, certainly determined by the apartment, but also most assisted living communities have what they call level of care charges. And every community is different on how many levels of care that they have and exactly what kind of care is included in each level. So it's going to depend on an assessment by the community's nurse on the prospective resident to determine what level of care that they're at, which will then determine the overall cost for the apartment. Now, there are a handful of assisted living properties out there that are all-inclusive, where the rate you pay includes all the care. That can be, a good option, especially when families are really concerned about, the budget. And let's face it, I have conversations with families, and then it's like, okay, here's the $1 million question. What kind of budget are we looking at, or what kind of budget? What are the finances like for your mom or dad? And unfortunately, so many people only have their Social Security income. And so let me mention this as well. I wish Buke was here so that she could talk about residential care homes.
I was hoping you would, so
Because
thank you.
that can be another option that is more affordable. I've been able to find families a shared room, all-inclusive, in a residential care home for as low as like $2,000 a month. So for good quality care. We don't refer to, dumpy places. We tour them regularly and make sure they're clean, and we get good feedback on and things like that. But the residential care home can be a more affordable option, and especially a more affordable option to memory care, which I know we're not talking about today, but residential care homes are very experienced in working with residents with dementia and are often secured, so they can be more affordable than a family paying for memory care. But generally, for assisted living, starting around $3,000 to $3,500 a month, and then just kind of going up from there, depending on how much care someone needs and the area that you're looking at.
I would say, you know, what I have the privilege of is working with families, and if we aren't, we are sensitive to budget, and sometimes I will say, you know, I would drive a Mercedes if I could, right? I mean, so we all have our budgets in mind, but what if somebody is not, we can't meet their budgetary requirement, you know, what I had the honor to do is then pass them right over to Tim, and I will do that first off, I'll ask them, because our Prestonwood property, and you're absolutely right, location kind of dictates the marketing price point. So our Prestonwood property has pricing is a little bit different. So that gives me an opportunity to share with the families about our sister property, the Tradition Prestonwood, just north of us. And if that is not a good location for them, then I will then just pass them on very carefully to the senior living specialists, who will then give them guidance. And I do that on a daily basis. So I understand that we don't meet everyone's budgetary requirement, but in cases that we don't, then we have the ability to refer to senior locators.
Okay. So we've talked a little bit about budget, which is a major question, especially in these times. We're all watching our pennies, maybe not all of us, I'm watching my pennies. And so can you tell us a little bit about how is assisted living most often financed? What are options for people? How are they paying for this? How can families plan for this? If you're not there yet,
Right.
what can we be thinking about to get ready?
Good question.
Go ahead, Tim. I'll
I
let you
think,
start.
well, I mean, obviously, whatever the person's income is, you know, their Social Security income, you know, some people are fortunate to even have a pension along with that. Certainly savings, you know, can be used. Oftentimes, the person may have a home that they're living in that they can sell, which will help, you know, supplement their income on a monthly basis. I wish a lot more families had long-term care insurance, because it just helps so much. And you know, with long-term care insurance, you know, there are some different things about it that families have to check on if they have it. I've seen it pay, and Loretta could speak to this too, I've seen it pay anywhere from $100 to up to even $300 a day or more sometimes to help pay for assisted living. Now there's typically like a 60-90 day
Elimination period.
Elimination
Yes.
period, yeah, before the policy kicks in and starts paying. You also have to check and see if the policy caps at a certain amount, or there are some that are a lifetime benefit. And so it's wonderful if a family has long-term care insurance. And I would say that's a big thing that you could consider as you're planning for senior living in the future, would be looking at long-term care insurance. We're also careful to ask families if the prospective resident or their spouse is a veteran. Because as much as you hear about the VA aid and attendance benefit, there's still so many people that just don't know anything about it, and it can be such a big help. I mean, for a married veteran, it's around $2,600 a month. For a single veteran, it's around $2,300 a month. And I believe for a surviving spouse, you know, the widow of a veteran, the benefit is around $1,300 a month, which can, I mean, that can make the difference between, you know, not knowing what to do and actually being able to find a place. So we ask families about that. And then, if family members, adult children are willing to supplement some on a monthly basis, to help pay, a lot of those families are willing to do that because they would prefer to see their mom in a community setting rather than having to go on Medicaid, which sometimes Medicaid does become part of the discussion, and it is what it is. I tell families, look, we try to help families avoid Medicaid if possible. Maybe it's finding a residential care home that they can afford, or we find out they have VA benefits, because there actually are a handful of assisted living communities that take Medicaid as a payer source. Not very many of them. And sometimes even with those, you have to be able to go in and private pay for a year or even 2 years before Medicaid will start paying. But typically Medicaid will only pay for a nursing home, a long-term care facility. And we try to help families avoid that if at all possible, and be able to be in more of a community type setting like the Tradition or another property.
Well, I think that about wraps that up, right? You did a good job.
Okay,
You did a good job on that.
Okay, so we're
But I
gonna,
will say one thing, I will add, yes, absolutely. Long-term care is a wonderful way to help offset the cost, and sometimes the families don't know, so they have to ask questions. Do you? I always say, ask your loved one if they have long-term care insurance. So anyway, but you did a fabulous job answering that. Thank you.
so we're gonna backstep and ask this question about what would disqualify someone from assisted living?
Oh, good question. You know what? Someone has to want to live in assisted living, right? Because it's open. Assisted living, and that's another myth. They think they're locked in, right? Assisted living is open from the inside out. It's just from the outside in that it's locked. So someone has to want to live there. I have conversations. I had a call the other day from somebody who said, my mother's in an assisted living community, X, and one night she got out and she wandered out the front door. And he said, and now they're asking me to move my mother to memory care. And I said, okay, sir. She said, could my mother live at the Tradition? I said, well, first off, safety is a concern. Somebody has to be able to be cognizant enough to be able to orient themselves back if they go out that door. I said, and he said, well, this particular community didn't post somebody at the door 24/7. I said, neither do we, sir. I said, that is a trigger. When somebody begins to be unsafe, is a trigger that it's not appropriate for assisted living. They do need that intimate security of a community that's secured, or a part of that community that's secured. So someone has to want to live there because it's unlocked. I had another one bring their loved one in, and we met, and I said to this person, I said, well, Sylvia, I said, do you want to move? And she's like, well, if my son wants me to. And I said, okay, because somebody has to want to live there. If they don't want to live there, in the middle of the night, they can walk out that door. So they really have to want to live there to be able to live there. And otherwise, you can have a safety risk. What would you say?
It depends on the specific care needs, because it can vary pretty wildly among assisted living communities as to the level of care that they are able to provide. I would say in my experience, for example, it's probably 50%, communities that will only do a one-person transfer versus communities that will do a two-person transfer, at least upon admin. Most assisted living communities will not do a Hoyer lift. There are some that do. That's just part of that search process of finding one. And then certainly if somebody has higher care needs like a feeding tube, or a catheter, there are certain things like that most assisted living properties won't take. And there again, we can come into the discussion about a residential care home. Because residential care homes can provide a really high level of care. I'm able to share with families that I had my own mother in a residential care home before she passed away a few years ago, and she was completely bedbound. I mean, she couldn't bear weight. They had to feed her, change her. Everything had to be done for her, and they were able to provide that level of care in a care home. So sometimes the care homes can come into discussion when there are higher care needs for an individual.
And I will say this too, if I can add just one thing. We are a type B community, assisted living, that we are licensed by the Texas Department of Aging and Disability Services. So our license kind of gives us parameters of what we can and cannot do in an assisted living setting. And there are different types there's A, B, and C. So we definitely have to be able to, upon assessment, to meet that need for care, safety, and dignity. And then, and that is determined by that assessment, and then we can evaluate the level of care. Because we do a very high, we can, in our community, we can do the medication administration, care needs, ADL needs, self-care needs, grooming, dressing, those kinds of things, as well as transfer assistance. And upon move-in, somebody does have to be able to assist in transfers. But they can then age with us as well. So, and then we can do incontinent management. So, so those things that would disqualify somebody would be, as Tim pointed out, the feeding tubes, the Hoyer lifts, those things that are more skilled needs.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about some of the things that can disqualify, and then also some of the things about choosing a community. Can you see yourself living here? Are there any other selection items that are focused on when you're meeting with families and you're helping them to decide how to pick the best community for a prospective community for the person? Do you have any more tips for us about some other things, maybe 2 or 3 things, other things that people should focus on?
Go ahead, Tim.
You want me to go ahead?
Speak to that.
Well, I mean, it depends on, you know, like Loretta said earlier, for the prospective resident to be able to see themselves living there. You know, we tell families that it's always important, or we encourage families, like when you go and tour a property, make sure that you're able to tour and then stay for lunch, or go and have lunch and then take a tour. And that accomplishes a couple of things. It lets you try the food, you know, which I hear so much is one of the most important things. You know, that I will go into communities sometimes just to visit on occasion, and sometimes there'll be some little lady sitting at the front door, and I always like to sit down with them and just say, introduce myself and say, you know, how do you like living here? Oh, the food's terrible.
Oh.
You know, that's the first thing that they talk about is the quality of the food. But then going for lunch also allows you the opportunity to see more of the other residents out and about. And I tell families that that can give you kind of a vibe for the community, because you can sort of see what their different care levels are, how active they are. I think it's important that you get a calendar of activities when you go and tour, so that you can see the different types of things that are offered. And as Loretta can attest to, I mean, assisted living communities literally have activities and opportunities for socialization from morning until night, every single day. But look at like the different classes that are offered, the different kinds of outings that they take. Are these things that your mom or dad would engage with and be interested in? And I think that that's really important.
No ads?
Well, I would definitely just tag on to that. Yeah, it is about their comfort and their enjoyment, and those are important aspects in the community. And the activity calendar is, the social calendar is very important, and the food is very important, and that what I love about our community is that that calendar is a reflection of what the residents' needs and hobbies, what their hobbies and interests are. So, yeah, I would say that you did a fine job with that.
Okay, so this is my favorite question because I think all of us have fallen prey to this. There are often times that we're dealing with scenarios where we're information gathering, and it's the what we don't know that gets us. So can each one of you give us the one thing that families don't ask you that they should ask you?
It's a good question.
That is a good question. I would think what they tend to kind of, they don't ask directly, but what the conclusion and the question is, would be, how do I get my parent to agree to move to assisted living? Because none of them want to force their loved one to do that, right? So they kind of skirt around, that's what I was trying to say. They kind of skirt around, I don't know, my mother doesn't want to do this, but how do I get her to do that? And there is a strategy because change is difficult for all of us. And nobody wants to, we don't want to force our parents or our loved ones to do something that they don't want to do. So we developed some strategies. And I would say that, I talked to them about getting the support of their physician. I asked them to, reach out to their family doctor and share their concerns, because there are concerns that they've noticed in their homes, and share the concerns. And so let the family physician be the one to say, this is what I recommend, right? And then give them the opportunity to choose. I always say, have them come to the tradition, and then don't give them too many choices, because obviously when folks have memory loss, the choices can be overwhelming. But let them participate in the process, because we all want to. If we participate in the process, then we buy into the decision. So I encourage them to do that as well, to get them to give them a choice. Keep it simple, but maybe 2 communities, maybe 2 apartments, but give them the ability to choose. So because it is something that can be a challenge, and they don't want. They want to continue to keep their relationship have a good relationship, and they don't want someone angry. I also let them know, tell your loved one that they can leave with a 30-day notice. They're not locked into a decision forever. We hope that they'll stay, and they do. And typically it'll take 30 days, a couple of weeks, 30 days or more for them to kind of adjust. But let them know that it doesn't have to be a decision. If they don't like it, they can give a 30-day notice, and they can make another decision. So nothing's in stone.
Yeah, and I would say in a more general comment about all of that, as far as questions. So we provide families with a really comprehensive list of questions that are
Yes, they do.
that are
We get those lists.
specific to assisted living, and we have those questions for whatever type of senior living that they're looking for. And it's it's like 3 pages long, because I tell families, common sense, you're going to think of things that you're going to want to ask, when you look at these properties. But there's probably a lot of things that you would never think of, that we think are important to cover. And so, you want to know things about the company that owns the property. You want to know about the staff, their tenure. You want to know about how they go about hiring caregivers. What's your caregiver to resident ratio? What's your turnover rate like? And just on and on. I mean, the financials, just everything related to a person living there. What's the process of, getting things started? With what happens if we decide we want to go with the property? What are the different things that we need to ask about and make sure that we cover? Because there's a lot that goes into it, and I'm sure y'all have like a move-in coordinator or somebody that can assist with that. But I think,
Right.
that's important.
Right.
And then some families need, they need realtors. You know, and that's, you know, we have the opportunity to refer to realtors because you're looking at maybe selling a home. So, you know, we just try to help families, you know, navigate all of that because it can be a really, you know, difficult maze to get through. Just because there's so many places out there, you know, and most people don't, they just can go online and look at them, but they don't really know anything specific about the community, and we certainly try to educate them with that.
Okay. All right, so audience, we as a panel are done talking. So now it is your turn as the audience. So I'm gonna poll the audience. How many people have more than one question? No, no, okay. Just one, okay. So we'll go ahead and take questions from the audience. Start in the back.
Yeah, sorry, wait. You said that you're type C. Can you define A, B, and C types of assisted living?
We're a type B, okay?
But can
We're a
you
type
define
B,
what
yes.
each
And
one
A
is?
is someone who can safely self-evacuate on their own, in other words, and they don't need nighttime care, okay? A B, and you can probably elaborate a little bit too. A B is, we're responsible to safely evacuate our residents. We expect that they wouldn't know what to do in an emergency. We expect that they would need nighttime care. We can check on our residents every 2 hours. So that would be a type B. And I think the C is the group setting. I think a group home setting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's general. That's general.
Type B is what, when you think of assisted living, that's generally going to be a type B. There are some assisted living communities that are type A. They will typically have higher functioning residents who don't need help transferring, you know, who just don't require as much hands-on care. But those can be good options, you know, for people that are higher functioning and maybe don't have as many care needs and they want to be around more active people.
Okay. Yes.
When you say residential care home,
Uh-huh.
is that like a smaller setting where someone's turned a home into a facility where they only have
Correct.
4 or 5 or 6?
Yeah, so these are, residential care homes are actual homes in neighborhoods. I would say the majority of them are owned by nurses, and they will go in and remodel, renovate, whatever they need to do, and make it to where it's like basically a small facility. And you may have anywhere from 4 to say 8 residents who live in the home. You know, there's a master bedroom, but then there are typically private bedrooms available, some that are shared, and they, but because of the fewer residents, you can't beat the staffing ratios. You know, you may have one caregiver for every 3 or 4 residents, so they're extremely responsive. The caregivers can hear and see everything that's going on. And as I mentioned earlier, care homes can also provide a really high level of care. Not all care homes are licensed. You know, technically speaking, with a care home, if the owner is taking care of 3 or fewer people in the home, then they don't have to be licensed. That doesn't mean that it's a bad care home. You know, because it's very expensive to go through the licensing process. Maybe they don't want to take care of more than 3 people. Now, most of the care homes we work with are licensed with the state of Texas, and they go through the same licensing that a community does. You know, they have to meet all the surveys and inspections and, you know, all of that. But we do work with some care homes that are not licensed, but we know them, we know the owners, we trust them. So yeah, that's what a residential care home is.
I don't have 2 questions. I have one comment and then a question. The comment is so timing is usually, it can be a factor sometimes, because I know trying to find a living space for my grandma years ago, we would take her to the same community multiple times. I mean, like every year, and right at like lunchtime, and she'd get to see kind of everybody out and about, and then playing games, and she'd go, nope, not for me, not for me, not for me. About a year later, we go one day, and she goes, where do I sign up? And it was, we weren't prepared. We were like, wait, what? And so I think it's just a matter of like she was mentally ready.
Yes.
So it could be, like you're saying,
It's
families
like
are
that light switch goes on,
It is.
right? It goes
Yeah.
on, yes.
Families are like, they're not ready. They will be eventually, but it's just,
Mhm.
it takes a little bit of time.
They have a process.
They do. It's just like us moving to another home. We have to be mentally prepared to do that. My question is, so I've had clients who are 70, 75 years old. They're moving into independent living, and they will make comments to me and they'll say, I know I'm 70, 75 years old, they'll say, but when I walk into that place, I'm not that old. And they'll say, and it's so sad because they'll say, I've never seen so many people with walkers, wheelchairs, walking very slowly, and they're like, I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
Is there, what holds people back? And maybe it's a insurance, maybe it's a myth. What holds them back from going from independent to assisted?
That's a really good comment and question because it is a challenge because we do offer independent living along with assisted living and memory care. So what I can speak about at the tradition is that, you know, Beauty, you know, our CEO and owner, Jonathan Perlman, designed it to feel like a beautiful home. Independent living is very large, assisted living and beautiful and luxurious, then assisted living goes to charming and cozy, and then memory care goes to a more intimate setting. But it is the biggest challenge, and it is the hardest. It truly is the hardest for our residents because they feel like they're giving up so much. But what I say to the families is that we can, and to our residents who are moving in from independent living, is that we can provide that you can be more independent in assisted living because we minimize risk by providing the services that you need. Some of our residents, sometimes people will ask, what are the triggers from independent living to assisted living? I get that a lot. And I would say anytime someone is having issues with their medications, with their safety concerns, or somebody has self-care needs where they might need somebody there, you know, to help them get dressed or help them safety assistance, you know, to the commode or something. But those are things that we can do. So we can elevate their independence in the assisted living setting because it's smaller and more intimate. And another major difference is we've got nurses around the clock. So, and care partners. So they have a device. It's a feature. It's a Tempo device, and it's their way to call for help. So they can then call for assistance when they need something. And so they can have someone available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, not living with them. They can have the privacy of their apartment, but they can have somebody available to them around the clock. And then they can also have a nurse be able to evaluate any change in their needs, any change in their health conditions. So that gives them a sense of security, comfort, knowing that, you know, what happens if someone falls, you know, if somebody's in an apartment and falls, you know, in an independent living setting, you have to call 911. But when they move to our setting that's more charming, we have nursing around the clock, so the nurse is there, care partners check on them, the nurse will come in, they'll check their vitals, and then they can help make the determination. No, I think you're okay, Mrs. Smith. You don't need to go to the hospital. We'll check on you for the next 3 days to make sure that there's no swelling. But so they really can then have the privacy, they can have the care that they need at their fingertips.
But is there a difference in cost and insurance kicks in and that kind of stuff?
Yes, and good observation. Long-term care insurance, a lot of times, many of them do have long-term care insurance,
Right.
and that does help offset the cost for assisted living. They can't use their benefits until they are in that setting.
And it's the same with the VA benefit. They have to, part of the criteria is that they do need assistance with a certain number of their ADLs. And so you're going to be using the VA benefit when you're in assisted living. At least it's been in my experience.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Well, I would like to thank our panel speakers. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with this audience. And I want to encourage our audience to please pre-sign up for our meeting next month. And please take some time to speak with one another and get each other's information. As I said earlier, we're friendly. We typically don't bite. I might. Everybody else is probably good. So we just thank you for your time. We want to be respectful for your time for today. Thank you so much for coming out to learn, and we hope you feel a little more armed and dangerous today as you head out. Thank you.
Thank you.